man, like everything else, is merely a tool caught in the vast, relentless machinery of cosmic self-destruction. Philip Meinlander. So here begins the sorrowful tale of perhaps the most radical and visionary philosopher known to history. By the end of the story, I'll offer a personal perspective, bleak and unsettling as it may be, on what his outlook still imparts to us today. Philip wasn't content to simply theorize cosmic pessimism. He pushed it to its darkest ends, weaving together his meditations on existence with the cruel and absurd notion he saw as the sole path to redemption, a revelation we will soon explore. Born Philip Batz in 1841 in Offenbach, Germany, he was the youngest of 6 children in a prosperous family. His father, a stern merchant, ruled with unforgiving rigidity, demanding relentless adherence from his children. This harsh and oppressive atmosphere scarred Philip deeply, compelling him to change his surname to Meinlander, meaning continental resident. This act was more than just a break from his past. It was a somber assertion of his independence and a symbol of his philosophical journey, divorced from the crushing pressure that haunted his youth. Yet, the weight on his soul wasn't solely his father's tyranny. Beneath the facade of his family lay fractures too painful to confront. The first harrowing blow struck when one of his brothers took a harrowing, self-inflicted exit, leaving behind a cavernous void drenched in despair. Not long after, another brother succumbed to the same shadowed fate, plunging the household deeper into a suffocating gloom. The motives behind their final acts remained tangled in darkness, but the cold, unyielding nature of the family, entwined with raw pain and relentless instability, forged a suffocating nightmare. Yet, as grim as this sorrow was, an even darker truth lurked beneath the surface. Philip's mother, a fragile soul scarred by profound psychological torment, had been trapped in a marriage against her will, a twisted genesis casting a grim pall over the family's existence. Philip himself confessed to this cursed lineage, "We are not children of love, but of conjugal violence." Amid the smothering cascade of suffering, a faint flicker of solace appeared in the form of an unusual bond with his sister Mina. She was his sole refuge, the only woman who gave meaning to his heart's desolation. No other passions touched his life. In the shadowed corners of their shared torment, Mina aided him in his fledgling philosophical musings, a rare ally in a family that scorned his restless mind. Despite the weight dragging him down, Philip sought to escape, and around 1860, under his father's stern gaze, he left home, plunging into the cold world of commerce. For 5 years, he drifted through cities like Dresden, Berlin, and Naples, each place a new battlefield in his quest to outrun the shadows of his past. Throughout those years, he was employed as a clerk in commercial firms and a bank, but the repetitive nature of the work left him unfulfilled. While in Naples, a chance encounter happened that would alter the course of his life. As always, I value your support immensely. It's a crucial factor in the future of the channel. Thank you sincerely. In a local bookstore, he stumbled upon Arthur Schopenhauer's The World as Will and Representation. This book made a profound impact on him. He recalled reading it straight through in a single night, so captivated by the ideas that he became oblivious to everything else. Schopenhauer, often regarded as the philosopher of pessimism, contended that life is driven by the will, a blind and irrational force relentlessly pushing all beings toward desires that inevitably bring suffering. For Philip, this book was more than an intellectual awakening. It was a revelation. It offered not just an explanation for the inner pain he felt, but also a foundation for his own philosophical explorations. Upon his return to Germany, a shadow clung to him, the heavy imprint of that haunting encounter, and an insatiable urge to push those dark ideas into uncharted, terrifying realms. Family torments soon clawed their way back to the surface. In 1865, death claimed their mother, a fragile yet pivotal anchor in the tempest of the family's shattered existence. Her absence tore open a cavernous void, swallowing Philip and his brothers in a suffocating solitude thicker than grief itself. Retreating deeper into the cold embrace of philosophy, Philip abandoned the fading echoes of poetry, seeking sinister truths to illuminate the universal agony festering inside him. A mere 5 years later, his father too succumbed to death's final grasp. Though their bond had been fraught with conflict and contradiction, the disappearance of his last parental figure sealed Philip's exile in a bleak wilderness, a hostile cosmos indifferent to his suffering. This isolation carved deeper grooves of despair in his soul. In 1876, Philip unveiled his magnum opus, Die Philosophie der Erlösung, where he revealed a cosmic horror of the universe itself, birthed from a divine act of self-ruin. Once, he taught, there existed a singular, all-encompassing being, God, who, weary of endless existence, shattered itself into countless fragments, birthing the cosmos and the ceaseless march of life. Creation, then, was no celebration of love or perfection. It was the opening act of annihilation, a slow spiral toward oblivion cloaked as existence. He perceived the Big Bang as the horrifying initiation of the decay of God's very essence, a horrifying journey fated to culminate in utter nothingness. He compellingly declared, the world is nothing but the rotting carcass of God, underscoring that every shred of existence was entwined in a sinister design, a slow, inexorable slide back into the void. To him, all life was a sentence of suffering, for the essence of existence was inextricably bound to unquenchable desire, an insatiable hunger that leads only to relentless frustration. He uttered a chilling truth. Non-being is preferable to being, for within nothingness lies the only sanctuary from anguish, a reprieve far removed from all torment. His philosophy twisted Schopenhauerian musings of the will to live into a twisted will to die, a dark force that drives all things towards inevitable dissolution. Everything exists merely to cease existing, he wrote, encapsulating his bleak vision of universal fate. The most unsettling aspect was that this philosophy transcended mere theory. It served as a grim manual for his own existence. After years spent ensnared in contemplation and prose, the arrival of his magnum opus, The Philosophy of Redemption, marked a sinister climax to his musings. On the day he held the printed volumes in his hands, he resolved to end his own life, as if to emphasize that the shadows of his thoughts were not mere inklings, but an undeniable reality that beckoned. The publication of his primary work, The Philosophy of Redemption, consequently signified the tragic zenith of his ideology. On the day he received the printed copies of his book, he chose to end his own life, as if to emphasize that the message within his work was not merely theoretical, but a reality he embodied. He was 34 years old when he took this step, an act that showed extreme consistency with his philosophy. However, interpreting his decision solely as a philosophical finale misses the full picture. It also reflected a life marked by personal pain, a fractured family, and an intense sensitivity that caused him to experience every thought and feeling deeply. If this already seems unusual and remarkable, another dimension surfaces that solidifies his status as one of philosophy's most unique voices. Mainlander was more than an obscure thinker. His profound empathy for human suffering motivated him to champion progressive ideals aimed at improving societal conditions. He was a strong advocate for social justice and economic fairness, proposing resource redistribution models to ease the burdens of the most vulnerable. Although his perspective was dominated by the idea of annihilation as the ultimate relief, he nonetheless pursued practical means to alleviate present suffering. He valued collective labor, solidarity among peoples, and the eradication of social inequalities, believing that even in a universe destined for dissolution, it was possible to foster a realm of dignity and respect for every person. The tension between the starkness of his philosophical outlook and his deeply human concern creates a philosophy that feels both rare and haunting, a blend of existential despair intertwined with a fragile hope for a fairer world. His thoughts have left marks on minds like Emil Cioran, Friedrich Nietzsche, and Albert Careco, and continue to resonate in today's conversations about the meaning of existence, the pain of being, and the elusive purpose of life. Though his views may strike some as harsh, unsettling, or radical, they offer a singular lens through which to confront life's darkest questions. As promised, I want to offer my own perspective on this tangled and sorrowful tale. At its core lies a heartbreaking reality. He grew up engulfed in profound family turmoil. Two brothers ended their own lives. His mother struggled under the weight of serious mental illness, and his father loomed as a cold and oppressive presence. Perhaps warmth and affection, the quiet, comforting gifts so many take for granted, were foreign to Philip's world. Reflecting on our own lives, it becomes painfully clear that sometimes survival or small blessings can feel like distant luxuries. Yet, maybe it's here that we find a subtle call to recognize whatever fragile light exists in our own stories. If our days hold more softness or promise than his ever did, could that be a reason not to settle, but to seek a deeper meaning in our fleeting moments? But there's something else, something quietly extraordinary. For all the shadow that cloaked his existence, Philip's legacy became a spark. an imprint that endured through the minds he touched and the art his ideas inspired. There's a haunting beauty in the fact that a life so scarred could nonetheless birth something that made the world a bit richer. Does this suggest that creation, whether it's words, art, or lasting thought, might be the faintest but most defiant hope? Perhaps in crafting something eternal, even amid suffering, lies a silver thread of meaning not easily broken. That's all for now. I hope these reflections, as melancholic as they are, might stir a quiet thought or feeling in you. Until we meet again.